Hello and welcome back to StoryTime with Eric Zimmer, where we last left off in the Mighty Dozen. The 9 friends have all gotten superpowers, except for James, who somehow turned orange with green hair. But they got superhero costumes as well, and decided to nevertheless protect the city of Reno, calling themselves the Mighty 9. So let's see how well they defend the city. Let's hope they defend the city. So you ready? Alright, let's begin. Chapter 7. A Mighty 9 Disaster. Oh ho ho ho. In the city of Reno, things seemed relatively uneventful. At a bar in a downtown area, a middle-aged barman, whose name was Stanley, was in the back alley emptying his trash into 2 dumpsters. He had thick lens glasses, short gray hair, a mustache, and did not look like a friendly person at all. Stanley had neglected to separate recyclables and paper from the rest of his garbage, and was just about to throw out the trash when... "Just a minute there, good citizen." Taken by surprise, Stanley looked around to see James, in full superhero clad, standing heroically with his hands on his hips, staring at the barman with disapproval. "You failed to separate your recyclables and papers from the rest of your garbage," said James sternly, "and according to city regulations, that's a Class 7B misdemeanor." "Who the hell are you?" asked Stanley irritably. He sniffed the air. "And why the hell do you smell all fruity?" "Who am I?" James said dramatically. "I'm your worst nightmare." Stanley was put off, but he didn't move a muscle. "My name is James Reitherman, a.k.a. Macho Man, leader of the Mighty 9. James pounded his fists together. "Mighty 9, assemble!" As if on cue, one by one, the others made their dramatic entrances and stood on either side of James. "Flash Richie in the flesh," Richard zoomed in. "Ice Christie present." Christie landed on an ice platform she made. "Magnet Man reporting for duty," Frank announced. "Invisible Dude appears." Gary materialized out of thin air. "Here comes Elastico," Pedro cartwheeled into view. "Kung Fu Reggie ready for a splice," Reginald jumped in dramatically. "Can Sonic Burp Boy sit down for a minute?" Joey panted as he came in sight, out of breath. The others rolled their eyes in annoyance. Suddenly 2 large trucks making a roadblock across the main road were thrown to the side as Carly made her own dramatic appearance. "The Smoking Hot Sweetheart is in the house," Carly announced proudly. Then she walked up to James, annoyed. "By the way, Macho Man, who the hell said you could give out the battle cry? First you give the team name, and now this? I'm the leader of the team, Smoking Hot Sweetheart," said James simply. "And what kind of name is that? It has nothing to do with your superpower." "But it does have to do with my natural beauty," replied Carly haughtily. "Shame I can't say the same for you, Fruity Hulk." She burst out laughing, and although Richard and Frank and Christie didn't laugh, they glared disdainfully at Carly. The others did. James's eyes flashed red again, shutting them up. They had completely forgotten about Stanley, who was watching them back and forth, looking increasingly confused and irritated. Finally, he spoke up. Hey, what the hell is going on here? Is this a superhero get-together?" Carly suddenly noticed him. "Oh yeah, I forgot. Mighty 9, attack!" She stretched her arms out to unleash her powers, accidentally sending sonic waves in both directions, one of them hitting James and sending him flying through the air. He ended up crashing into a fruit cart full of oranges, but luckily he was uninjured. Apparently, the superhero costume seemingly protected them from serious injury. He was, however, covered head to foot in oranges. A Hispanic woman, the person in charge of the fruit stand, started yelling at James in Spanish, while he just groaned disgustedly, hoping things wouldn't get any worse. Back at the bar, the others were apparently trying to fight Stanley, but due to their inability to control their superpowers, ended up causing more damage than they meant to. Carly accidentally caused the 2 dumpsters to topple over with her super strength. Joey let out a sonic super belch, causing a nearby McDonald's sign on a pole to fall down and flatten a parked car, and Reginald attempted to use kung fu on Stanley, but he ran off in a state of panic. "We're under attack! Call the police! Call the authorities! Help!" As the others watched him go with satisfaction on their faces, Richard appeared out of nowhere. Apparently, he had run off somewhere. "You know, they have very nice bathrooms in Minnesota," he said to no one in particular. At that moment, James came up to them, still covered in oranges, as he tried to peel the sticky peels off of him. "This isn't working, you guys. Maybe it would be best if we try to schedule some practice sessions so we can have the chance to learn to control our powers better." Upon seeing James in his current state, everybody burst out laughing. Even Richard, Frank, and Christy couldn't help it, because James never looked so ridiculous. And worst of all, he smelled even fruitier than ever. Carly doubled over and fell to the ground, laughing hysterically. James looked as if he was about to explode. His eyes glowed red once more. "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up!" Immediately everybody stopped laughing, except Carly, who was laughing harder than ever. James was shaking uncontrollably, and his teeth were clenched so tightly they looked like they were about to shatter. "I have a better name for you, macho man," Carly said through her laughter. "King Vitamin C!" Everybody burst out laughing again, except James, who got angrier and angrier with every word. "Come on, guys," said Carly, getting to her feet. "I think we got this superhero thing under control." She headed down the street with confidence, the others following suit. James stood where he was, his eyes slits of fury, his fists and teeth clenched, and his entire body shaking uncontrollably. Just then an orange peel trickled down his face onto his nose. Furious, James wiped the peel off and stormed down the street. Unknown to him, Eddie, Peter, and Clara, who were hiding behind a building, glared after the team, but looked at James with tenderheartedness. Meanwhile, in downtown Reno, a man walked across a busy street, unaware that the flashing street sign changed to "Don't Walk." Suddenly, the man seemingly bumped into an invisible wall. In an instant, Gary materialized out of thin air, his arms folded, looking very disapproving. Terrified, the man jumped and fell flat on his back. "Not cool, dude. Do you realize you just walked across the street when the sign clearly flashed 'Don't Walk'?" Instead of answering, the terrified man screamed and ran for his life. Gary watched him go, looking a little surprised. That dude has some seriously sick issues, he said to himself. As Gary walked off, James, now squeaky clean after going through a car wash, watched him go. Having just witnessed everything, James sadly shook his head and sighed hopelessly. But then he remembered a word of advice about teamwork and persistence from Arthur, and all those summers he had spent at camp. "A good leader never gives up on his team," Arthur used to say, and I know you have what it takes to be a leader, James. I have faith in you. We all do. Finding some consolation with remembering these words, James smiled and followed the team more confidently. Across the street there were 3 people on a bench at a bus stop, each one with a newspaper. The newspapers were lowered, revealing Eddie, Peter, and Clara as they continued to follow the team in secrecy. Throughout the day, every time trouble struck, even if it was the problem was seemingly mundane, the Mighty Nine was there to save the day. However, as a result of their inability to control their powers, they caused more trouble than there was before, and the damage they unintentionally caused became more and more serious. Each time, James was there to try to reason with the team and get them to learn to control their powers. Each time, however, James was laughed at, not just by the team, but by any other citizen who was in the presence of the team. And each time that happened, James became more and more agitated, especially with Carly's constant insults, and he spent the rest of the day wondering how to pay her out. By the late afternoon, downtown Reno was in such a wreck it was almost impossible to describe in words. In her latest antic, Carly, in an attempt to get a cat out of the tree, shook the tree so hard that the cat went flying, screeching in fright. Fortunately, the cat landed on its feet, naturally, on the curb on the other side of the street, and ran away in a panic. No sooner did this happen than Richard suddenly appeared again in a flash. "God damn it," he said in exasperation, "I always miss the good stuff." As the rest of the team gathered around to observe the damage they caused, James appeared looking desperate. He was even more appalled by the damage he caused by the Mighty Nine than they were. Although James was becoming increasingly agitated by his team constantly mocking him for his ridiculous appearance, he knew they needed his help and therefore he couldn't give up on them. "Guys, this is not working. All day long we've been causing more damage than doing good. We practically destroyed half the city because of our antics." "Mostly Catherine's and Joseph's antics," said Frank indifferently. "Shut up, Frankie," Carly snapped. "I didn't make any of this mess," Joey complained. "Shut up, Joey," Carly threw a large stone at Joey, but Richard caught it with his super speed. James groaned in disgust. "I propose we schedule some training session to practice controlling our superpowers immediately. If we don't harness them now and keep on causing more damage, we'll get in trouble with the authorities. Or worse, someone could call the National Guard." Carly was fed up with James by this point as she marched up to him. "Listen to this, Sir William of Orange, and listen good," she said arrogantly, prodding a finger into James's muscular chest. "We've got this superpower business under control. You know what your superpower is? Super irritation. I'm warning you for the last time, Catherine Norberg. Stop mocking me!" "That's it. I'm gonna enjoy this." Carly's fists started to glow magenta as she raised them, intending to throttle James. But before she could do so, Christy, Pedro, and Reginald grabbed a hold of her. They gripped her so tightly that she couldn't break loose, even with her superpowers. James saw this as an opportunity to throttle Carly, but Richard and Frank grabbed his arms while Gary and Joey held his legs in place so that he couldn't move. Everybody stared in fright while James and Carly continued to glare menacingly at each other. "Catherine, I am only trying to help you guys so you don't get in trouble and get yourselves locked up for the rest of your lives." James looked furious as he said this, but his voice was pleading with Carly, who went into a relentless tirade, getting angrier and angrier as she went on. "You want to help us, James Matthew Reitherman? You can help by not helping. All day long you've been nagging and nagging and nagging us about controlling our powers. Well, guess what? You don't know everything and definitely don't know shit about having superpowers because you don't have any. You're just an overgrown Oompa